I'm going to be speaking from a very personal perspective on the issue of homemaking. So I thought some context would be in order. From the moment I was born, let's see, did it work? Yeah, there you go. I was a little different. I'm not just talking about the leopard print onesie. No, from a very early age, I was a little particular. When I finally came out to my mom, that's me. When I came out to my mom a few years back, my mom's response was a simple, "Huh, I always thought your brother was the gay one." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" Oh, jeez. So, when I came out to my sister, though, this one, she said flatly that she'd known since I was 3. So I was born gay. But if that was all I had to say, there'd be absolutely no reason for me to present here. Our panel isn't about orientation. It's about new and different home economies. Home economies that address new and different realities. So let me talk a little bit about the home I grew up in. I was my mother's 4th and final child, and the man holding me in this picture was my mother's 6th husband. There we go. 6th, yeah. So, my mom collected husbands like some people collect stray cats. So she'd bring them home, wash them up, and do her best to domesticate them. But if they peed on the carpet or otherwise misbehaved, they'd be asked to leave. So, number 1 sired my brother. Number 2 adopted him. Number 3 sired my oldest sister. Number 4 sired my younger sister. Number 5, well, he apparently, did it work? There we go. He was impotent. Number 6 sired me, and number 7 adopted me.
Were there more?
Nope, that's it. Lucky number 7, they were married for 21 years. Yeah, number 6 sired me, and after abusing my mom and my siblings, he was escorted out of the house by men in uniform. I was 5 and a half at the time. Number 7 entered the scene when I was 10, and he adopted me when I was 13. He and my mom were married for 21 years, and he died on my mother's birthday in 2003. Strangely enough, most of the men listed here are dead. She didn't kill any of them that I know of. So, abuse, physical, sexual, and psychological, were part of our lives growing up. I was fortunate in that I escaped the worst of the abuse. So it should be no surprise that my siblings and I put a lot of energy into escaping home life. My brother escaped into computers, cross-country, and school life. My oldest sister escaped into her life with friends, church roadshows, and two not missions, what are they called?
Study abroad.
Study abroads in Mexico during high school. My second sister escaped, period. First, running away at the tender age of 8, falling into drugs and prostitution. She died on the streets at 17. And me, well, I escaped into choir and debate and the LDS Church and all the things that it offered. My oldest sister and I are the only Mormons. Of course, that's a story for another time. All right, so my homemaking efforts began at an early age in a very literal way. There were weekly 4-hour-long grass mowing ritual, the monthly bedroom redecorations, the occasional redecoration of the rest of the house, and one sunny afternoon, an impromptu home remodeling project that involved some light demolition. Yeah, I didn't get permission. It looked a lot better afterwards, though. But there's also a sense of homemaking that we're talking about here today, the purposeful making of one's home life. This more figurative homemaking manifested itself in my daily trips through my neighborhood and to the world beyond, during which I looked for people who would let me into their homes and into their lives. Newlyweds, young couples with small families, retirees, Mormon mega families. These are the Jorgensons, a family from church that took me in. I love these people and love them still. And they have no idea how much their being in my life meant to me. So what was I looking for in these trips? What were the qualities of home that I was looking for? Safety, and being needed and appreciated, loved, people to love, being out of my head, finding counsel givers and secret keepers. We all want to be safe from physical harm, from ridicule, sometimes even from our own selves. Needed and appreciated doesn't need explanation. We want people in our lives who have our best interests of heart, of course. And if we're well-adjusted, we have profound need to love others. But you can't love, nurture, whatever, everyone. Not in this deeper sense. This deeper sense requires a sort of mutual commitment. So, on being out of my head, it's an unfortunate turn of phrase, but it's the best one I could come up with. Human beings are inherently self-centered. And that's not a qualitative assessment, that's a geospatial one. When I wake up in the morning, I ask, what am I going to do today? Even the most altruistic person in the world wakes up in the morning, what do they say? What am I going to do today for somebody else? So human beings are inherently self-centered. But marriage and family life gets us out of that. It's suddenly we and they. In looking for family and in creating my own ad hoc families, I was looking for people to take me out of my head, out of the I and into the we and they territories. So, about counsel givers and secret keepers. We live in a supremely political world. Child, adult, it doesn't matter. We are constantly weighing where we are in our relationships to others, the importance of words, of body language, and it's in this environment that it's extremely important that we have allies. Someone who will call us out on our BS or tell us when we are being walked over by the people in our lives. They're extremely important in regulating our beliefs and in our fears. These people are our secret keepers and our counselors. Without counselors and secret keepers, we struggle to make sense of our emotions and our place in the world. We struggle to thrive. Let's fast forward to adulthood. As a young BYU student and a freshly returned missionary, I knew what my next assignment was. Marriage. So I began dating in earnest. I hadn't really dated before. Yeah, sure, I went to prom. That's me with the bishop's daughter. Don't judge me, it was the 80s. So there was the prom, but they didn't really count, these dates. For all intents and purposes, my first real dates happened at BYU. And at BYU, I dated a lot. But they were mostly first dates, for obvious reasons. I recall a handful of seconds and no thirds. But they were all with amazing women. So this was taken on our way back to Provo from a lovely dinner up in Park City. My favorite first date. I had favorite first dates. But let's face it, none of these relationships were going anywhere, and every date felt like I was out with my sister. I couldn't give up hope. I kept on looking for that one girl that would, with whom I could make a home. So here's a quick story. I'm living in this apartment just off campus, and I've been living there for about 2 or 3 years when a rumor that I was gay swept through the ward, and it was not exactly a good week for me. I wasn't ready to come out of the closet, and frankly, I'd only just come out of the closet to myself a few weeks earlier. Anyway, the rumor mill was on overdrive, and then one evening, one of my roommates, Mark, God bless came up to me and he pulls me aside and he says, I told the guys, our roommates, I told the guys that they're crazy to think you're gay because, well, you date more than all of us put together. I didn't have the heart to break it to him, but that the rumors were true. But he was a sweet man. I really appreciate it. And as I was dating all these women, I was going about a very real form of homemaking, a rather traditional form of homemaking, especially for guys at BYU, fresh off their missions. But looking back, I can honestly say that I wasn't so much looking for a wife as I was looking for a new family. I was looking for, of all the girls I dated, the ones that stand out the most were the ones with bustling families of their own. Families I could adopt and who, if everything went according to plan, would adopt me. But all of that came to an end in 1998, 5 years after I started BYU. It was a beautiful sunny day. We have lots of those here in Utah. And I was at work in my cubicle, and I had, as best as I can describe, a waking dream. It was of me, some imagined future me. And I was sitting in my backyard, and I was sitting along a little stream going through the backyard, and I could see vaguely off in the background my wife working at the barbecue grill up by the back of the house. And there is my little boy, beautiful little boy, sitting next to me, and we're talking, and he looks up to me and he says, "Daddy, why did you marry Mom?" And I looked at him and said, "So I could have you." And that was the end of the dream. As I was sitting there in my cubicle, in tears, the thought that I'd marry someone just so I could have a child horrified me. And needless to say, I stopped dating women. And that's when my homemaking plans took an abrupt turn. It didn't occur to me then, though it's occurred to me numerous times since, to just leave the church and find a husband, to hop, as it were, a different train running in roughly the same direction. But that wasn't really an option, and still isn't. Not really. Not for me. So where does a man in search of a family go? How is I go about making a home for myself in this new reality? How has I ever defined what I was looking for? These qualities of home. That dream happened 13 years ago, and at the time I was still living with roommates at BYU. Within the year, I'd buy my own home, not far from BYU, but even in this new place, I still had roommates. But how well did it meet my needs? Here's what I would say my average BYU roommate situation looked like. So, safety, needed and appreciated. I cleaned a lot. Loved. People to love. Yeah, they weren't the greatest. Out of my head. Yeah, these two are really highly correlated. Counsel givers and secret keepers. Yeah, no secret keepers there. During the same time, I was attending the family ward. I skipped a little bit. So here we have a decent situation. It's not perfect, but it's not acceptable. Certainly not long term. But it did work for me. For a little more than 6 years, it worked. Though, frankly, as my roommates got older and more marriage-focused, it became harder and harder to look to them for anything beyond a good morning. Near the end of my time in Provo, it became very evident that I'd have to look elsewhere for my ad hoc family. All right, so here's what my quality of home looked like towards the end. So during the same time, I was attending a family ward where my home was located. It was a hard ward to live in. There was no unity. The bishopric seemed distracted and overworked. And except for a few amazing families, the members of the ward were just passing through. I was called as ward chorister, but my efforts in that calling were constantly second-guessed. But the real blow for me was that there was no real elders quorum to speak of. We had a class of elders, but not a quorum. So as my roommate situation was deteriorating and my ward family was not really picking up the slack. So I sold my home in Provo and I moved to Salt Lake City, and I wasn't going to make the same mistake twice. I first found a ward I loved and then bought a home in the ward. And for me, that was right downtown. In this ward, the bishoprics have been able to balance the near-crushing demands of welfare seekers and the social and spiritual needs of the congregations. I've had callings that were matched to my abilities and my interests, and I've been part of an active and engaging elders quorum. And here's how my current ward stacks up. Okay. I feel safe, needed and appreciated, loved. There are people to love. Still not out of my head. There still aren't people that just capture my imagination where I'm at work and I'm like, I wonder how so-and-so's doing. Counsel givers and secret keepers. Still not there. At this time, like I said, I stopped dating women. A few years later, I decided to start dating men. So, qualities of the men I date. Safety, needed and appreciated, loved, let's see. Not so much. It's a lot of first dates. People to love, there's some good guys out there. Out of my head, absolutely. Dating is a blast. And you ask somebody out on a date, and for the next 2 weeks you're thinking about, what should we do? How much fun it'll be? What can I do to make it really interesting? I wonder what they're doing. I wonder what they're thinking. So, yeah, I'm out of my head. And then counsel givers and secret keepers, no. Because once again, that takes a commitment. And dating isn't a commitment. So, so let's look at those combined. And so it's not entirely additive, okay? And what you don't see, though, is that it's horribly diffuse. This shows the disparate experiences spread among maybe 1,000 people, okay? So, all the people in my ward and all the people I date slowly, add up to something like that. But that's not really an option either. Homemaking is an iterative and eternal experience. For me, it's the quest to either find my counsel giver and secret keeper or to learn to do without. For those of you who found your family, it's the quest to perfect it. To, as I've said elsewhere, trudge towards perfection. It's all about thriving. Because that's what life is about. Man is that he might have joy. I am available if you want to plug into my continuing adventures, my dating adventures included. You're welcome to. Thank you.